a mystery interstellar object that was spotted by astronomers last week. It could be the oldest comet ever seen. It's only the third time that we've actually detected an object that has come from beyond our solar system.
It began like so many other discoveries in astronomy. Not with fireworks, not with a cosmic boom, but with a whisper in the data. A faint, silent blip crossing the blackness of space so subtle that even our most advanced tracking systems nearly ignored it. The entry was tagged as routine, an object drifting across the outer rim of the solar system. At first, it was filed away as a comet, then as a potential asteroid. But the more astronomers studied it, the less it fit into any natural category. Its surface reflected too cleanly, its trajectory was too deliberate, and its silence, absolute silence in a universe where comets roar without gassing, became the loudest alarm of all. Scientists remembered Oumuamua, the mysterious shard that passed through our skies in 2017. Tumbling and accelerating in ways gravity alone could not explain. That object had been strange enough, but this was something different, larger, slower, smarter, calculated. Where Oumuamua darted past us, 3I/ATLAS coasted as though it had mapped our solar system long before we ever looked back at it. It was the first move in a game we didn't even know we were playing. At first, the catalog entry for 3I/ATLAS looked like any other new discovery, but small inconsistencies began to pile up, and soon the picture turned unsettling. Interstellar visitors rarely behave predictably. They cut sharp angles through our system, accelerate wildly, and vanish back into the dark before we have a chance to truly study them. 3I/ATLAS did the opposite. It moved like a whisper, smooth, precise, as if obeying instructions we could not read. When astronomers backtracked its origin, the results were troubling. The trajectory wasn't just unusual, it was statistically impossible without deliberate control. The path it took avoided debris fields, sidestepped radiation belts, and navigated gravitational zones with an elegance no drifting rock should possess. Like a chess piece guided by a hidden hand, it slipped past hazards that should have torn it apart. Then came the Webb data. Unlike other comets, which release heat chaotically as their surfaces burn and sublimate, 3I/ATLAS pulsed. Every 147 seconds, a rhythm repeated, calm and unwavering. Not random, not natural. And as Webb's spectrograph peeled back the layers, we saw compounds never before recorded in any natural object. This wasn't just a comet, it was something else entirely. The breakthrough came not from light, but from sound, or rather, from the faint echoes carried on invisible frequencies. While Webb mapped the surface of 3I/ATLAS, radio telescopes from Chile to China began reporting a curious anomaly. A low-band electromagnetic pulse, steady and repeating, was detected radiating from within the object itself. The signal cycled every 147 seconds, perfectly synchronized with the heat pulses Webb had already observed. At first, skeptics dismissed it as interference, a quirk of overlapping equipment. But then independent arrays thousands of miles apart confirmed the same rhythm. Even amateur operators with backyard setups claimed to hear fragments of the strange heartbeat. The data couldn't be ignored. This was not noise. It was a pattern. Teams of cryptographers, physicists, and linguists began decoding attempts. What they found was haunting. The pulse wasn't a language in the conventional sense. No alphabet, no grammar. Instead, it was mathematics. Ratios of primes, spirals of Fibonacci, hints of the golden ratio, patterns that shape galaxies, DNA, seashells, and architecture alike. Nature does not choose such precision by accident. Someone, or something, was speaking in the oldest universal code. And now, it was speaking to us. For many scientists, the signal from 3I/ATLAS was not entirely new. Somewhere, deep in archived data from 2017, it had been heard before. That was the year Oumuamua cut through our system like a shard of glass, tumbling end over end, moving faster than it should, and leaving physicists divided over its origin. Some said it was just an oddly shaped rock. Others swore it was an alien probe. The debate was never settled, because the object slipped away before we could prove anything. But when researchers compared the 147-second frequency of 3I/ATLAS with Oumuamua's final recorded tail signatures, they froze. The same frequency had flickered briefly in 2017, faint, almost imperceptible, before Oumuamua vanished into deep space. It was as if both objects carried the same fingerprint. The implications were chilling. Oumuamua may have been a scout, a passive observer cataloging our system. If so, 3I/ATLAS wasn't a coincidence. It was a follow-up, larger, slower, more stable, not rushing through but watching, and now interacting. Scientists stopped calling it a comet or asteroid. They began calling it something else, Phase 2. The turning point came on a quiet night in July. Until then, the pulses from 3I/ATLAS had remained steady, unchanging, like a cosmic metronome. But suddenly, without warning, the rhythm broke. Instead of one pulse every 147 seconds, the intervals stretched, contracted, then multiplied into layered beats. The simple math dissolved into something new, complex, intentional, adaptive. Within hours, radio arrays in Australia reported strange harmonics, like chords instead of single notes, a symphony written across the void. Spectrographs recorded subtle shifts in the object's chemical signatures as though it were reconfiguring itself. Even the surface brightness began to flicker, pulsing faintly in synchronization with the new signal. To some, it was beautiful, proof that humanity was no longer alone. But to others, it was terrifying. Signals that evolve are signals that listen. Something out there had heard us listening and had decided to respond. In emergency meetings, agencies debated what to do. Was this communication or a test, a greeting or a warning? No one agreed. But one fact became unavoidable. 3I/ATLAS was no passive rock. It was aware, and for the first time in human history, the universe had spoken back. The pulses were no longer simple math, but structured layers of information. Teams across the globe scrambled to decode it. At SETI's headquarters in California, software built to scan billions of radio bursts was repurposed overnight. Linguists studied the rhythm as though it were music. Cryptographers treated it as a cipher. Mathematicians searched for patterns within patterns, peeling away the signal like an onion. Then came the breakthrough. Within the interference lay geometric instructions, ratios that, when plotted on a grid, produced a shape. Not a star map, not a planetary orbit, but something closer. A blueprint. It showed an elongated structure, smooth and symmetrical, eerily resembling 3I/ATLAS itself. Internal compartments, corridors, even what looked like propulsion systems were hinted at within the ratios. To many, this was the first undeniable evidence. 3I/ATLAS was engineered. But buried deeper still was something more chilling. A secondary layer contained sequences that mirrored strands of human DNA. Not complete, not identical, but enough to raise impossible questions. How could something from beyond our solar system know us so well? And why would it send our reflection back to us, hidden in the noise? The message was no longer just mathematics. It was personal. On a cold September night, the pulses stopped. For 6 hours, the universe held its breath. No rhythm, no signal, just silence stretching across the void. Many thought the phenomenon was over, a cosmic coincidence fading into nothing. But then, at 3:17 UTC, it returned, not as a pulse, but as a voice. It wasn't sound in the human sense, but the translation software rendered it audible, a tone deep and resonant, carried through the arrays, layered harmonics folded into each other, resolving into words that no one wanted to hear. "We see you." The phrase repeated 3 times, each iteration clearer than the last. Then silence again. The world changed in that instant. Some celebrated, calling it proof of contact, a cosmic handshake across the stars. Others trembled because the message wasn't discovery, it was observation. Whoever, or whatever, controlled 3I/ATLAS wasn't announcing itself. It was letting us know we had already been seen, already been studied. Governments rushed into secrecy, suppressing details, but the leak was inevitable. Amateur astronomers had recorded the same broadcast. Within hours, the word spread across forums, news feeds, and radios. Humanity had heard its first reply from the dark. The phrase echoed across the planet like a fault line splitting open. "We see you." 3 words that should have united humanity instead drove it into chaos. Markets crashed within hours. Billions wiped from global exchanges as uncertainty strangled economies. Panic buying emptied shelves. Rumors spread faster than facts, mutating into doomsday prophecies. Some believed invasion was imminent. Others claimed salvation had arrived. In cities, protests erupted. Some demanding governments reveal what they knew, others begging leaders to send a reply. Religious groups split. For some, the message confirmed prophecy. For others, it was the devil's deception. Conspiracy theorists filled the void with fear. Was this proof of a surveillance network spanning galaxies? Had Earth already been catalogued as prey? World leaders met behind closed doors. Military forces shifted into high alert. Navies and satellites repositioned. Missile shields quietly armed. But against something that had crossed interstellar space, no arsenal felt adequate. Meanwhile, the object itself drew closer. Its trajectory bent subtly. No longer a wandering course, but a curve aimed toward Mars. It was as though 3I/ATLAS had chosen its destination, and with every passing hour, humanity realized the message was not just a warning, it was a prelude. Telescopes locked onto 3I/ATLAS as it veered toward the red planet. At first, analysts thought it might simply crash, another rock destined to scar Mars with a fresh crater, but its descent was controlled, too controlled. Thrusters, or something like them, ignited faintly along its surface, decelerating the massive body in perfect synchronization. This wasn't impact, this was arrival. Orbital cameras caught it as it slowed to a near hover above Valles Marineris, the canyon that splits Mars like a scar. It hung there, a dark spear against the crimson dust, rotating with deliberate poise. Instruments detected electromagnetic surges, broadcasting not outward, but downward, into the Martian crust itself. Seismographs on Earth and Mars relays confirmed tremors rippling through the planet's interior. Something beneath the surface responded, a resonance that matched the 147-second rhythm. Suddenly, the pulses made sense. They weren't just a message to us, they were a key. Then came the flare. A burst of light erupted from the canyon floor, visible even from earthbound telescopes. When the glare faded, structures stood where there had been only rock, angular, geometric, unmistakably artificial. 3I/ATLAS had not come alone. It had come to awaken. For weeks, Earth stared upward, paralyzed. The structures on Mars stood like monuments, casting shadows across the canyon floor. They weren't ruins. They were active, humming with power that defied every measurement. Probes sent to investigate malfunctioned one by one, fried by invisible fields the moment they drew near. Only fragments of images made it back. Vast pillars, doorways etched with unfamiliar symbols, a glow pulsing like breath. Then came the second transmission. No math, no geometry. Only words, sharper and clearer than before. You are not alone. You were never alone. The message played across every channel, hijacking satellites, phones, even dormant networks. It didn't ask for response. It didn't offer peace. It was a statement of fact, one humanity could no longer deny. In the days that followed, governments fractured between silence and disclosure. Scientists argued whether to prepare for dialogue or defense. But ordinary people understood the truth instinctively. History had ended, and something new had begun. 3I/ATLAS had not simply visited our system. It had delivered a revelation. We were being watched, measured, and perhaps summoned. Whatever came next, Earth would face it under a single, undeniable shadow. We had been seen.